Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to yet another video. For those of you who are new here, hello, my name is Nicole, and I like to come on here once a week to just share messages of guidance that will help you on this journey called life in these midst of crazy things that continue to unfold. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that is very close to my heart, and that is about the human body, because I think many people fail to fully comprehend just how powerful and what an absolute beautiful piece of machinery the body really is. And whilst we don't understand the human body, we can't really take advantage of its deep and unique qualities. So the reason why this topic is so personal to me is because for many years I absolutely loathed my body. And I guess this video will be really helpful for people who don't feel good about themselves, who are not in the best of health, or who are just trying to improve their self-confidence, or just, really love themselves more. Because when we don't really understand how the body operates, and it's also very much connected to our spiritual practice, because, the body at the end of the day, people say we are not our body, but we really are our body. And as much as I like to say every week that we are, soul beings having a physical human experience, what we have to remember is that our physical body is the vessel that our soul came here to experience this 3D physical reality in. So I guess in a sense you could compare the body to a car. So let's say you're going on a really long road trip, and if you take a shitty car that's falling apart, the journey is going to be a lot less comfortable than if you're driving in a super spacious, high-tech brand new car. And especially if you are driving on bumpy roads, you can imagine driving on a bumpy road on a, in a tuk-tuk versus driving on a bumpy road in a super high luxury SUV. And so that is kind of how we have to look at our human body, because we don't really understand the way it works. And even for, I don't know how long it is that doctors have been trying to understand the human body, and still till today they can't understand the way it functions. And that is because the human body is far more complex than we can even possibly imagine. They say that we were made in the image of the gods, and that is because our human body is literally a god, in the sense that if we are operating at full capacity, at optimal capacity, then the body is capable of doing the most incredible things possible. For me, when I look at dancers and acrobats and people who do martial arts and athletes and just people who do incredible things with their bodies, I've always just been amazed at some of the things that human beings can do. And the only reason, and especially when you look at some of these human beings, and they make it look so easy. And I guess that is the power of the human body when you are totally in connection with it, because they say that we're using what, 10% of our brain. And so if we're only using 10% of our brain, I think it would be safe to say that we're only using about 10% of our body. And, I've always been obsessed and love superhero movies. And since I was little, have always wanted to have magical powers and magical abilities. And, not to go religious here, as I think most of you know now, as I'm totally not a religious person, but I've always really resonated with the teachings of Jesus Christ. And, one of the things that he said in his teachings when he was talking about the miracles that he performed was that these things that I do, you shall do better, or you shall do even more. And, he was performing incredible miracles. The fact that the story that has always really marked me was when he, turned a blind man to be able to see again. And then, yeah, okay, he rose from the dead. He rose from the dead once, but I mentioned him before. You can go and look into Simeon Toko, who was an Angolan dude who, I think he died in like the 1980s. And he basically was killed multiple times and resurrected multiple times. You know, there are incredible feats that have been accomplished throughout history, but a lot of them remain hidden because, well, God forbid the pharmaceutical or health industry should find out about some of these incredible things that human beings are capable of doing. And one doesn't even have to go that extreme. When you just look at the placebo effect, I mean, how many people have healed themselves just through the power of their thoughts? And again, doctors and scientists still can't understand how this happens. And the easiest way to explain this is consciousness, because it's just that powerful. You know, they in the Bible, they talk about ask and you shall receive. And I can tell you that this is very, very true. These go into concepts of manifestation, because when you believe that you are worthy to receive the things that you desire, then you truly do receive the things that you desire. And this is why, yes, we are a physical body, but what is controlling and animating this body is something that is not tangible, is something that cannot really be seen. And that is our consciousness. And that's why I'm sure many of you have heard of the saying mind over matter, because when our minds, especially for people who have a growth mindset and who are wanting to expand and to grow and to improve their lives, then, you know, this goes very much hand in hand with the body. And so one has to understand, especially if you're on a spiritual journey, on a journey of healing, the number one place to start is the body. And so this is really how my spiritual journey began. It was through the body. I was always somebody who was, you know, very much what you see is what you get. And though my sister had gone into these spiritual concepts long before I did, when she would talk to me about these things, I was like, yeah, you know, that's all well and good for you. I don't know how much I believe that, because I needed something tangible to hold on to. And so the body was a great place to start. And the reason why I started through my body was, well, for as far back as I can remember, you know, I struggled with my weight and I absolutely loathed myself, and I would look in the mirror and feel absolute disgust. And even to the extent where, you know, I was always a little bit bigger, and I wouldn't say that I was obese, but, you know, I just never felt at ease in my body. And I think this is a very common concept for a lot of women, where we're always needing to be perfect in the way we look. And if we don't look like the supermodels on TV, then we don't feel good about ourselves. And, you know, I'm sure that this probably applies to certain men out there as well. But so for a long time, I just absolutely hated what I would see in the mirror, and I had absolutely no self-confidence, and I didn't feel very good about myself, and I didn't love myself, and I didn't think that I was worthy, and I didn't really think that other people thought that I was worthy, and I was such a total people pleaser, and I just had to play this nice girl sort of role, because I believed that unless I liked everyone and everyone liked me, that I was not a good person. And so there was a lot of things that needed to be unpacked. But really how I came into the body was for health concerns, because both of my parents passed away from cancer. And of course, they say that cancer is hereditary. And so, you know, there I was at 26 years old, drinking like a fish, smoking everything imaginable, taking every drug under the sun, you know, doing all the things that one does when they are totally unhappy and in a deep state of depression. And it is only in later years that I realized that all of these things that I were doing were actually coping mechanisms for the deep-seated traumas that I had, and the feelings of loneliness and the feelings of sadness and the feelings of shame and guilt that were basically anchored deeply into my body. And so at this point, I was like, okay, well, here are these, you know, my parents that have just died. I certainly, you know, I was 26 years old, and I was like, well, I definitely don't want to die of cancer. I need to go and figure out what the fuck I'm doing with my life. And so there began the journey of coming into better health. And so how that journey started was, initially I started off by stopping to eat meat. And not that I'm saying that everyone here should stop eating meat. You should really go and do whatever it is that you want to do. But what I'm saying here is that one needs to do everything that they do with a level of consciousness. Don't be operating from a place of autopilot mode and just doing whatever you're doing because that's what everyone else is doing, is really question why you do the things you do. And I guess that's why, that's how my journey began, was really starting to question, why do I drink so much? I started drinking from the age of 14 and was drinking quite heavily by the time I was 16, 17, and even to the extent where I would go and have shots of tequila before going to school because I was so depressed and so unhappy, and it was really the only way to cope. And so I guess this is an important time to highlight here that addiction is not a disease as much as the mainstream health industry would have you believe, but addiction is a side effect of something of a deep emotional traumas, of things that are not going well inside. And a lot of the time, it has a lot to do with our mindset. Because what we don't tend to realize is that the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body are all deeply, deeply connected. One always impacts the other. No matter what we do in our lives, all four of these bodies are going to be affected in one way or the other. So, for example, in my case, the cause of being addicted to all these substances was because my emotional body was all over the place. I was always somebody who didn't believe in showing emotions. For me, showing emotions made you weak. I guess in that sense, I was educated in a very masculine way, as I was, I grew up with my father, who was very old school, and essentially we grew up in a very strict military household where showing emotions and showing feelings and crying, all of these things were totally unacceptable. And so for the longest time, emotions were something that I avoided at absolutely all cost, even to the extent where after especially my father, as I was closest to my father after he died, for me, it was, as much as it's totally normal to grieve, I would go and hide myself away in the toilets to cry because I felt ashamed crying in front of people and thought that it made me weak and thought that it was, just not something that one was supposed to do. And why am I talking so much about the emotions is because the emotions and the physical body are so, so deeply interconnected. Because if you break it down in the simplest way possible, how do we know that we're feeling something? We know that we're feeling something, just as it goes in the saying, we're feeling, is because we can feel something within our physical body. So think about, for example, when you feel joy. Think about how you feel in your body when you are feeling joyful. You feel light in your body, you feel good, you want to, shout things from the rooftops, you're friendly to people, you want to share, you're happy, you feel good. The way you think is different when you're in joy. You have positive thoughts and you see the beauty all around you, and so on and so forth. But now think about when, for example, you are sad or depressed or in grief or in anxiety. Suddenly things operate in a very different way because, when you are sad and depressed and upset, well, suddenly your thoughts are quite negative and those thoughts make you feel not so good in your body. So, for example, when you feel deep fear, perhaps you get like a stabbing sensation in your stomach, or when you feel really sad, perhaps you feel a tightening in your chest, or when you're feeling really stressed, maybe you feel like you have a lot of burden on your shoulders. So you can see now how the emotions that we feel is directly connected to how we feel within our physical body. And so really what happens is that emotions are energy in motion. And the reason we know that we are feeling an emotion is because that energy begins to move through our body. We can literally feel something happening in our body as we're feeling these things. And so every single time, think about when sadness comes up and you're just like, oh no, I shouldn't feel sad. You try and shove that feeling to the back of the proverbial closet and kind of say, oh no, I really shouldn't be feeling any of these things. Well, then what happens is that you're stopping that emotional loop from completing itself. And so what happens is that the emotion, the energy of that emotion becomes trapped within your body. And that is then the underlying cause of every single health disease imaginable. Because what is disease? Disease is basically dis-ease. When you are not in a state of ease, it is because you're thinking something, the things you think generate certain emotions, those especially the sort of what we term negative emotions, then get trapped within your body, and your body doesn't feel good. And so think about it this way: people who are stressed, people who experience chronic stress, well, they start to experience all kind of health issues. And what's so interesting is that the leading cause of heart disease today is, of course, lifestyle. And lifestyle goes very much into our mindset and, how we think and the way we look at the world and so on and so forth. And so they have shown that the leading cause of heart disease is actually consuming negative content, because, it can really be considered a form of terrorism, the kind of stuff that is shown on the news. Because when you think about the images that are shown on the news, it's just so much like death energy, really, in that we see horrific things. And I've said this in some of my previous videos, is that they did a test when there was the Boston terrorist attacks, and they did a test over time to see that those people who were actually physically on the ground during when those attacks took place versus people who saw images on TV only and weren't physically present, well, those people who only saw those images on TV were far more traumatized and took a way longer time to recover from that trauma than the people who were actually on the ground and who were physically there when those attacks took place. So think about how crazy that is here for a minute. Think about all the people out there who watch all these very bloody movies, and all these movies where there's so much shooting and there's so much violence. Or even think about like the video games, when you see that most of the video games, especially that kids are playing today, are so violent. And we think that that's not affecting us, but that is affecting us in ways that you can't really begin to imagine until you take the time to actually tune into your body and start to pay attention to what you're actually feeling. But we have become so good at not feeling our bodies, and that is the number one reason why so many people are not grounded. So many people are not in their bodies. And for the longest time, I absolutely hated being touched by anyone, even to the extent where, when you're sitting in a car and somebody's leg kind of like touches yours because you're all there sitting in the back seat, and I would start to get serious heart palpitations, and I would start to get serious anxiety, and I would start to feel really stressed, and I would just feel like I was going to faint because somebody was touching me so mildly. And so, there was a lot of research that I needed to go and do into myself as to why I felt these ways. Why was it so scary for me to be touched by somebody? And so, when we experience things in our bodies are literally giving us information as to things that are going on, things that we need to give our attention to, because it is so easy to say, oh, I'm not going to think about this. I'm just going to push it to the back of the cupboard, or sweep it under the rug and not ever think about these things. But eventually these things that we don't want to think about, they catch up with us, because the body can only take on so much stress before it starts to fall apart. And how many people do we know in today's age that struggle from burnout and need to take months off and have to be diagnosed with all kinds of nonsensical mental health issues because people don't understand what is really going on? And this is why we have to look at everything from a holistic point of view, because one does not negate the other. Everything works as one system: the mind, the body, the emotions, and even the spiritual aspects of ourselves. And this is why so many people are sick today. So many people are unhappy today. Why? Because they are disconnected from their emotions. They are totally unaware of the thoughts that they are constantly generating unconsciously, which are then, the more negative thoughts you have, the more negative emotions you create, the more shitty feelings you create in your body. And a lot of the time people are doing this this totally unconsciously. They have no idea what thoughts that they're thinking the majority of the time, therefore not realizing that their thoughts are what are making them feel shitty in their body. And then they're constantly looking for, you know, the next best thing to help them get away from these negative feelings. And I guess alcoholicism is the best way, because there is a serious alcoholic epidemic taking place in the world today, and these things have been totally normalized that people think that this is okay. People don't want to admit that they have a problem and that they have addictions. And food is another massive addiction, social media is another massive addiction, and all these addictions that we have are really just coping mechanisms to run away from feeling everything that is going on within our body, because we want to suppress and repress and run away from all of these negative emotions that we're feeling that are totally normal. And the emotions are literally there to help us understand that there is something that needs to be released. And there is nothing dangerous in emotions, because once you allow yourself to feel that emotion, once you allow yourself to allow that emotional loop to close itself out, then you literally won't be carrying all these dense energies inside of you. And this is why, how many people have, for example, you're going around through life and somebody says something to you, something that's really not that big of a deal, and suddenly you shout at that person and you get really angry. And then later on you find yourself being like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't know what came over me. Well, I'll tell you what came over you. What came over you was the fact that you had probably a lot of repressed anger in you that you haven't dealt with, that you've just kind of been burying there underneath the carpet, so that when somebody would say something to you, that all that anger that is sitting in your body will have been triggered by whatever it is that that person said. And so that anger comes rushing to the surface and you can no longer control it. And this is why we see so many angry drunks, because actually a lot of anger is stored in the liver. And so a lot of the anger that we hold, that we don't allow ourselves to feel, and that we repress and repress and repress and repress and repress, and then we go drinking because we don't know how to deal with all of these thoughts and these feelings that we're having, so we go and drink, and poof, all this anger is now coming out of us because we're drunk, because all that alcohol is really triggering your liver, so that now you're just a ball of rage and you don't know what to do about it. And so essentially what happens also is that all the times that we repress our emotions and we run away from them, this also comes to this, all of these energies that we are holding on to come and sit within our body. And so many of you might have heard, or might not have heard, of the nervous system. And so we are made up, essentially the way our body functions is through our nervous system. So what the nervous system controls the fight or flight mechanism. And so the nervous system, essentially, when you are triggered, and most of us are living in fight or flight today, because we are living in a deep state of survival, because we don't know how to deal with all of our emotional stresses. We don't know how to deal with all of our mental stresses. We don't know how to deal with all of our physical stresses, which are really coming from our mental and our emotional stresses. And so we have to start to pay attention to our mind. What kind of thoughts is our mind generating when we're not really paying attention to what we're doing? What thoughts do what emotions, do those thoughts generate? Because they really go hand in hand. And what's really crazy here is that the brain cannot tell the difference about something that is happening in real life or something that is just happening in your head. So if you are constantly stressed, thinking about the worst case scenarios of everything that could happen to you, because these emotions are being generated, your body is secreting all of those stress hormones, whether you're just sitting in a room on your own and there is nothing happening to you, just you sitting there thinking about all the worst case scenarios that could possibly go wrong. Your body is starting to shut down because your hormonal system, your endocrine system, is now starting to secrete all of those stress hormones that is making you very sick. And that is why they say that stress is one of the biggest killers, because we don't realize that the thoughts that we think also secrete certain hormones within our body that then has a negative effect over us if we are constantly secreting all of these stress hormones. And when we secrete all of these stress hormones all the time, this not only affects our heart, it also affects our fascia. So the fascia is the soft connective tissue that connects everything together. And what happens is that all of these negative emotions, the energies of these negative emotions that we are not allowing ourselves to process, they come and sit in the fascia. So for example, let's say, we all know when they say stop holding the weight of the world on your shoulders. Yes, because we don't realize that actually all of human beings hold all of the same emotional patterns in the same places within their body. And so for every single health issue that you have, there is an emotional underlying cause. And this is why sometimes, especially today, right now, how many people have I heard saying, oh, I'm sick and I'm feeling unwell, but yet when I go to the doctor can't find anything wrong with me. The reason why the doctor can't find anything wrong with you is because what is happening now, remember, we are going through a time of serious spiritual evolution. And that means our consciousness is expanding. Our consciousness is evolving to the next level. And what does consciousness mean? Consciousness is really synonym with awareness. How many of us are really walking around the world with total awareness of what is going on, of total awareness of what it is that we are doing, of how it is that we are behaving? Most of the time we are operating from a place of autopilot, and then we do something and then we go back later and we're like, oh my God, why did I do that? How many of us live in regret because we do things or we say things that we didn't necessarily want to do? And that is because we are working from autopilot. The idea now is for you to not find yourself in these places and to have more control over your actions, and to not have to look back and be like, why did I do that? Because you will have control over your emotions and over your thoughts. And so really, because we are going through this period of serious evolution and consciousness upgrades, we are being forced to look at all these things that we have repressed and we have pushed under the proverbial carpet because we didn't know how to deal with them, or we didn't want to deal with them. But let me tell you this, the reason why they say healing is such an important part of the spiritual journey, whether this is mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, is because of the fact that when we are carrying all of these unprocessed and repressed emotions within us, this makes our body extremely dense. This makes us not feel good. This makes us really, really heavy. This is why when, you can walk around and you can see some people who feel light and happy and joyful and airy, and then you can just look at someone else and they just feel glum and sad. Or it's like, I'm sure you've met certain people that you don't want to be around because their moods are just, they just pull you down. And this is how infectious energy is. Just like how, for example, when somebody starts laughing, everybody else starts laughing as well, because, energy is contagious. Just like when somebody is feeling weepy and mopey and down in the dumps and you're feeling joyful, you don't necessarily want to be around that person because you can feel their energy literally pulling you down. And so the more we have all of these repressed and suppressed emotions within us, not only is this physically aging our body, not only is this causing all kinds of health issues and disease, which over time will get worse, because a lot of the time cancer, people don't realize that a lot of the time why cancer is created is because of a lot of emotions that have not been dealt with. And how many times have I heard people say, oh, I got cancer, and yet I eat right, I exercise, I sleep enough, I do all the things that I'm supposed to do. And that's perfect, but they still end up getting cancer. And why do they end up getting cancer? Is because perhaps their mental health is atrocious. Perhaps their emotional health is atrocious. You can be as healthy as you want, but if your mind is constantly plagued by negative thoughts, it means that most of the time you will be feeling negative emotions. You will be literally stressing your body out, therefore creating more of these stress hormones to be secreted into your body, literally giving you what they call adrenal fatigue. Because another, sorry, I'm jumping around here a lot. I hope you're with me. So coming back to the nervous system, because the nervous system is what regulates everything within our body. And what's interesting is that the nervous system, so everything that functions within our body is all controlled by our nerves. So for example, somebody might have a terrible shoulder ache, and no matter how many times you get a massage or you go and see a physio or a chiropractor, no matter what you do not feel release or relief in that shoulder. And that is probably because it is due to nerve issues. And what happens with nerve issues is that it's all connected to the brain. So let me give you an example here. When there are certain things that you don't want to think about, let's say you have you had a horrible experience as a childhood and you want to totally sever that memory. You never want to think about it again. So what you're doing is you're literally telling your brain to short wire itself so that you can erase that memory and never think about it again. But as you are short wiring the circuitry in your brain, you are therefore also short wiring the circuitry within your nervous system, meaning that your nervous system is not functioning optimally, meaning that you are going to have all kinds of issues in your physical body, but also information is not traveling correctly between your brain and the rest of your body. So for example, if you have difficulty lifting up your hand, that is actually due to nerve damage. And the easiest way to deal with nerve damage is to find the emotional root cause and to heal it. So again, it's very easy for us to run away from our thoughts and run away from our feelings and say, you know what, I'm not going to think about this. I'm just going to pretend none of this is happening. Well, it's easy for us to negate these things in our mind and our emotions. But what happens is that the body literally holds everything. So something that you might not have heard is that I think it is up to almost 12 generations of trauma is stored within your physical body. And this is why we talk about generational trauma, because even so let's say your mother experienced some kinds of severe hardship when she was younger, or even your grandmother or your great-great-grandmother. You can go as far back as you need to and think about the hardships that people within your family lineage experienced. If they didn't heal that trauma, or even you can bring it down to, let's say, your mother or your grandmother injured her knee and had to be amputated. Now, the trauma of that amputation will literally be sitting within your cellular construct, within your DNA, within your nervous system programming. Literally meaning that you might have issues with your leg because your mother was amputated. And this is just how powerful it is when you start to break down the energies and how the energies of trauma affect the body. Because even when we don't want to think about these difficult and stressful things that are going on within our mind, you know, it's like if you, sorry, let me break this down more simply. If you keep, okay, let me give you an analogy. Let's say your house is really, really dirty. If you keep sweeping the dirt rather than chucking it in the bin or, you know, putting that dirt outside, if you keep just sweeping that dirt under the carpet, eventually the carpet is going to be filled with so much dirt that you can no longer ignore it. And that is essentially what is going on with the body. You can suppress, and ignore as much as you want in your mental space and your emotional space. But everything that you are ignoring in those spaces is coming and sitting within your body. This is why you might be having all kinds of aches and pains and you just can't understand why. It is because all of the things that you are suppressing and ignoring, well, they have to go somewhere. And where do they go? They go into the body. But the body is such a powerful piece of machinery. The brain and the body are so powerful in that every single time we say, I don't want to feel pain, let's say the pain of a heartbreak that you have been feeling, you don't want to feel it, and so it represses in your heart space. What happens is that you are telling your brain, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel this. So therefore, as a result of you not wanting to feel this, you are short wiring the feeling mechanism that connects your brain to your heart and your heart to the rest of your body, so that you have literally severed your connection to your heart because you do not want to feel it. And by you telling yourself, I don't want to feel, I don't want to feel, I don't want to feel, what then eventually happens is that you start to create other forms of chaos where you're not getting enough blood flow, you're not getting enough and, you know, energy and motion, you're not the connection between your nervous system and your heart, all the different, because there are so many different systems that work in cohesion within the body. But every single time you say, I don't want to feel, I don't want to feel, I don't want to feel, what's happening is wherever your body has held on to those emotions that you don't want to feel, you are severing a connection with that part of your body. And this is a good time to transition into the lymphatic system, because the lymphatic system, which most people have no clue about its existence, is literally the sewerage system of the body, in the sense that the sewerage system of the cellular structure, because our cells are constantly regenerating. But the waste of the cells as they are regenerating, because our cells are always regenerating. So every time our cells are regenerating, the waste part of those cells, well, they go through the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system literally knows how to flush things out. But if we have no connection to the lymphatic system, then everything is building up, that eventually the wastage can no longer, all that waste is literally just sitting in your body. So it's like, think about when, for example, you don't have water in your toilet, and somebody goes to the toilet over and over again. And okay, this is fine if it's a number one, but if someone is going for a number two and you can't flush that toilet for months on end, you can just imagine just how disgusting that is. And that is essentially what is happening to your lymphatic system, because all this stress and all these emotions that you are not wanting to release, all of those energies are literally sitting in your lymphatic system. And the major organs that are connected to the lymphatic system is the adrenal glands, and they sit just above your kidneys. And so this is why so many people find themselves totally exhausted, and this is why people go through burnout, because it is connected to adrenal fatigue, because your adrenal glands are literally not able to clear out what is going on within your system. And so one needs to start to pay attention to the lymphatic system. And so I'm just going to give you an example here as to the main parts of your lymph drainage and how you can start to actually clear your lymphatic system for yourself, and to start helping some of these energies that have been sitting in your body for so long to just start to clear themselves out. So you want to do this really, really gently. When you're dealing with the lymphatic system, you want to touch very, very lightly. And what most people don't realize, again, is that one of the main reasons why people are getting cancer is because their lymphatic system is not being drained. And this is where the majority of our trauma will come and sit. So the main places where we have lymphs connected to the lymphatic system is right here in front of the ear. So I want you to just do this with me here, and you're going to notice just how good you feel. So we're just going to start to rub, and you're just using the tips of your fingers here, and you're just going to start to rub very gently the area just in front of your ears. So just rotating, whether you want to do this clockwise or anti-clockwise is totally up to you, but just gently massaging these parts of your body. And just bringing soft. One doesn't realize that also, depending on the intention with which you touch yourself, is going to totally shift the way you feel in your body. So now as you're touching yourself gently and with the intention of releasing all kinds of horrible energies within you, now you start to realize that the body can start to relax. So just gently massaging this area. You can do that about 10 to 20 times. Now, the next drainage, so from here, it travels down through the neck, and this is one of the main drainage points. So I want you to just tap along the area of your collarbones. Gentle tap. This is the first drainage point. So just gentle tapping. And one doesn't realize that by doing these gentle kind of movements, you're also helping all the stagnant energy from your repressed emotions to start moving again. And one doesn't realize that as much as we're talking about energy, this links very much into your ability to breathe, therefore your ability to bring in nice, rich, oxygenated blood to circulate throughout your body well, also improving your health. So just tapping gently here. Now from here, I want you to use the base of your palms, and you're just going to rub very gently through the back of your neck, allowing that energy to drain down. So just allowing all these energies to now start to clear out of the body. Now you might start to feel really hot, or you might start to feel cold. You might start to feel all kinds of sensations. Everyone is very different. Generally, when I'm working with my lymphatic system, I tend to get very, very hot. So just pay attention to whatever it is that you are feeling, because whatever information your body is sharing with you is just letting you know that something is happening. Now, the other major point where we have lymphs is under the armpit. So you can just gently tap under the armpit and even all the way to behind the shoulder. So you can just do a gentle tapping or a gentle massaging, whatever feels right for you here. The idea is for you to connect with your body and just start to feel what feels good for you. So just gentle tapping. Another reason why a lot of women get breast cancer is because we have a lot of nodes that connect from the armpit into the breast. And so if there's all these blockages here, that lymph fluid isn't draining down, and all that toxic waste is just sitting in your body. It doesn't know where to go. Then you can move on to the next side. You can just do this for as long as you want. You can do this multiple times a day, and you can even start to realize how much your body starts to relax. A lot of the reasons why we find it difficult to relax is, for one, because the nervous system is stuck in fight or flight. Therefore, our brain is stuck in the sensation that makes it very difficult for us to relax, but also because all of this trauma, all of these negative emotions, all of these sort of dense and heavy energies are just sitting in our body. The next place that it comes is right here. So you can just start to tap all the way down into the space between the breasts or the pectoral muscles for the gentleman. So just gentle, gentle tapping. Allowing, you might realize that you start to feel less stressed after you do this. You can just travel down, because all the limbs travel all the way down into the space, into the belly, and just into the space up above the belly button. So you can just go up and down. And here and when you do this with a set intention, you're setting the intention to release any emotions, any energies of, let's say, fear or anger. So you can work with specific emotions here if you want also. So just gently tapping. Remember, you're doing this really gently. We don't need to be hard here. And then the next place where the energies, where our main lymph drainage area is in the groin area. So again, you want to come and just tap on the groin here. So just tapping on that area of the bikini line, the groin area. Again, remember, gentle tapping. You can also do gentle massaging with the base of your palm. But remember here, you can move in a circular motion. The idea is to just try out different things. This is you starting to connect with your body, starting to help all these energies start to release out. So either circular motions, clockwise or anti-clockwise, or tapping, for you to just figure out whatever it is that you want to do here. There is no right or wrong way. It is just about you starting to connect with your body more, paying attention to what you feel. And the more you pay attention to the physical sensations in your body, whenever you're feeling not good physical sensations in your body, it is your body communicating with you and trying to let you know something here isn't right. Something here needs your attention. Your body is literally saying, pay attention to me. I need your help. So the next place that we go is behind the knees. So behind the knees is a massive collection point. How many of us have problems with our knees? And the reason why we do is because that lymph area gets really blocked behind the knees. So just tapping gently behind the knees. Again, you can massage or tap, doing whatever feels right for you. Gentle, gentle tapping. And so really what the body needs is softness, you know, especially if you've had trauma in your lifetime. The number one thing that you really need to do here is to be more soft and kind with your body. Treat it with love. Remember, they say our body is our temple. And just coming back to the analogy of the car, if you don't, you know, if you have that super high luxury SUV on this bumpy road, of course it's going to be more comfortable. But if you don't, you know, put the right tires on that car, if you don't service that car, if you don't take it to the mechanic every so often, that car is just going to fall apart. And even if you're in the most luxurious SUV, if you're not looking after that SUV, it's going to be a pretty bumpy road and it's not going to be that comfortable. So it is about honoring your temple, servicing your body, giving it what it needs. And that goes beyond, you know, the foods that you are eating. It goes beyond sleeping enough. This is also what content are you consuming? What thoughts are you constantly generating? Okay. So these are the first main points I want to show. I don't want to go too far. I can show you more in next videos, as there is so much to talk about when it comes to the body. But another place that is also just massaging the rib cage area, because this is essentially where your kidneys, you know, well, the kidneys are really at the back. So if you tap sort of the middle back where the kidneys stand, and you can just kind of gently tap onto the kidneys, this will start to really connect with those adrenal glands and just sending them information. You know, what's happening is that a lot of the time the body has switched off. And so with all this gentle tapping, you're now starting to bring everything back online, helping the body to slowly reawaken. And the more that you feel into your body, the more you feel what is going on, the more you communicate, because the body has its own deep innate intelligence. The body is communicating with you all the time. For example, when you sneeze, you're not sneezing out of thin air. When you yawn, you're not yawning out of thin air. This is your body giving you information. You yawn to let you know, okay, you're tired, or perhaps you're hungry. You sneeze, it's because, I don't know, something has gotten blocked and your body is helping to clear it out. You know, when you go to the toilet, it's because your body is ready to evacuate things that don't need to be there. And so this is the same concept. There are those things that we see happening and the things that we don't see happening, but the body is constantly in motion. The body is always working. The body is constantly feeding us information. But the more you ignore your body, the more you might as well, you might as well check yourself into a hospital today, and then people wonder why they get sick. It's because, prevention rather than cure. Maintain your body's health by giving it what it needs, and you will start to realize that things shift very, very quickly. Once I started putting my health first and foremost, every single decision that I started making, I started to question, is this making me healthier, or is this taking away health from my body? And when you start operating from that kind of questioning, now you start to pay attention to the world in a different way. You start to pay attention to yourself in a different way. So a lot of information has been covered here, and I think this is a good place to stop, because I could talk about this for hours on end. But do practice that lymphatic drainage, tapping every so often. You will realize that this also helps you to really relax your body and to really start allowing things to move in the way that they need to. So I hope that this video has been helpful. In case you find this information helpful, I would love if you like the video or share it with people who you think will benefit from this knowledge. And in the interim, I'm sending you so much love, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Bye for now.